Hi, I'm Jim Silvernail, a battalion chief with the Metro West Fire Protection District in St. Louis County, Missouri. I'm also a Western Regional Director of the International Society of Fire Service Instructors. Let's talk about the rescue component of SLICE RS. The priorities of structural firefighting remain constant: to save lives, to protect property, and to minimize harmful impacts to the environment. The SLICE RS application has not changed this, nor has it placed a lower priority on rescue.
Rescue always has been, always will be, our strategic priority. That doesn't necessarily make it the tactical priority at any given time. It makes me really nervous when I hear fire chiefs developing rescue modes and I hear officers announcing we're in rescue mode. Brothers and sisters, we are always in rescue mode. We shouldn't be changing our operation because we have a report of people trapped. That is an assumption we make at every fire we go to, and we address the situation based on that assumption. But remember that that's a strategic priority, not a tactical priority. If you can effect more rescue or save more lives or reduce harm by getting water to the seat of the fire faster, that becomes your tactical priority. That's how you achieve your strategic priority of rescue. We have to have the flexibility to do that, and really any good fireground commander and any good fireground officer always has used that flexibility. SLICE RS, I think, emphasizes that it's a flexible and a dynamic decision, not one you simply make once on the fireground and then you can move on to something else. The emphasis of making it an action of opportunity is that you have to constantly address this throughout the incident, not just when you pull up on the scene.
In this first scenario, the crew arrives on the scene. The officer immediately sees the victim and goes to the window. The officer makes verbal contact with the victim and asks the victim to remain calm and asks if he or she can close the bedroom door.
Is your door open? Can you shut your door?
My door's open.
Okay, well shut your door for me, okay? We're coming.
The crew is simultaneously deploying a ladder to the window for a rescue grab. The officer radios a progress report and orders the next new company to assume fire attack. The crew assists the victim down the ladder. Not all rescues immediately present themselves upon initial arrival. Immediate actions may be those that facilitate fire suppression and victim access. In this scenario, the engine crew will arrive to find flames showing from front windows. The crew will begin implementing the SLICE RS application. The officer will begin the size up when a frantic bystander runs up and states, "I think there's a wheelchair-bound person somewhere in the structure." The crew quickly sizes up, locates flow path, keeps the front door closed, and does a rapid reset from the front yard. This must all take place in just a few seconds. Speed is critical. The crew makes quick entry and locates the victim and begins extrication. In this scenario, the immediate action of resetting the fire by external stream application was initiated to facilitate the rescue. It accomplished two purposes. One, to improve conditions for trapped occupants and to increase survivability by lowering heat. And two, to initially control and contain the fire to improve internal access conditions for firefighters. The survivability of occupants in a structure fire is directly related to their exposure to heat and toxic gases and the amount of oxygen available to breathe.
Ventilation limited for the fire means oxygen limited for any victims in the compartment. Unless they're sheltered from the main fire area, a ventilation limited fire that's limited to the point of below 6 to 8% oxygen will have a zero survivability profile for any victims, regardless of where they are in the structure, unless they're protected from the main body of fire.
The SLICE RS application addresses this vital concept utilizing facts from science and research. Cooling the fire first makes conditions better every time. Saving lives will always be the highest priority in the fire service. That will not change, nor will the fire service stop entering structures to make rescues of viable trapped occupants. SLICE RS has not changed this and places the highest priority on saving lives. Rescue must be immediate and initiated once the opportunity is presented. However, as illustrated in previous examples, actual victim removal may be secondary to essential facilitating actions such as immediate cooling of the interior fire atmosphere. From South Bend, Indiana, I'm Jim Silvernail. Be safe.
All right, today we're going to be talking a little bit about the tactic of vent enter search. This is also called a targeted search. We're just going to talk a little bit about how it's performed and when it's performed.
This type of search gives victims the best chance of survival. Generally, we're looking to start searches as close to the fire as we possibly can. Some of the exceptions to this are going to be when we have a fire on the first floor of a 2-story building. Time of day may dictate that we need to go directly to the second floor where we have the highest probability of victims.
Sometimes the fire has to be controlled before the search, but really more often than not, we can and should be performing both at the same time.
Before using this tactic, you need to understand the difference between venting for fire and venting for life. Venting for life must be done with the knowledge that you're going to be drawing fire at you once you make that opening.
We need to talk about the go versus no-go parameters. The go parameters include when you know you have a viable rescue, when there are no signs of impending flashover, and of course, like always, you need to make sure that it's a coordinated attack, and you need to make sure that you have a good membrane. In other words, the other side of that room should have a door or some way to compartmentalize that room from the rest of the structure. So a no-go would be when you obviously don't have a viable rescue, such as when there's imminent flashover's already occurred, or when you have a loss of that membrane, there's no way to compartmentalize that room from the rest of the building, or when you're using PPV. Once it's been identified that the vent enter search tactics is going to be used, you need to make sure that you're not also implementing positive pressure ventilation. Okay, so now we've got our ladder in place. Now there's a couple of different ways that people talk about doing this. One is to put the ladder up and take the window out with the tip of the ladder. The other option is to put the ladder up and then climb the ladder and take the window out then. We prefer to put the ladder up first, climb the ladder, and then take the window. That allows us to better control our environment. From the tip of the ladder, we're going to be able to assess the interior conditions. We're looking for the door to make sure that we can compartmentalize that room. We can also assess current interior conditions within that room, since this is most likely going to be a victim rescue scenario. Some of the recommended tools: the searcher has a Halligan that's going to aid in his search. It's also going to take up, you can take a roof hook or multi-purpose hook or pike pole or something like that to help you stay oriented to the window, and we'll cover that. And then also, since this is an oriented person operation, we're going to bring up a tick for the oriented man.
Getting ready to use my tool. Take the head of the tool, plant it firmly against one of the rungs. Now we've got a nice solid pivot point to work with. Come forward, strike the window. Now I can come around, clear the window out, take out any sash that may be in there. So now we've taken the sash and we want to be sure to let this room breathe. If it decides to immediately flash, it's important that we know that before we commit ourselves in. I'm looking to see how the conditions are changing. Do I have good lift? Is it starting to really chug out at me?
Now the searcher is going to make his entry, and he's going to be continuously assessing conditions as he comes through the window, keeping in mind that his door is most likely going to be directly across from his entrance window. The first thing the searcher is going to do is gently sweep below the windowsill to search for any potential victims. If there's no victims, he's free to sound the floor with the head of the tool to make sure that he has a stable structure. Now, this is the head first method, which many folks prefer. It allows you to stay low and begin your search a little bit quicker. Alternatively, you can use the straddle method. This is where you throw one leg over the sill and brace yourself up with your arm. As before, you need to sweep and sound the floor. Which method you use is really just a matter of personal preference. Okay, now myself in the officer position, I've waited until my firefighter has made entry to the window, and then I'm going to head up directly after him. Now, as the oriented member on the ladder, I'm going to keep an eye on my teammate. One of the first things I'm going to do, if I still have the hook, I'm going to hook the sill for him. And what having the hook there is going to do is it's going to give the searcher a reference point. When he goes around the room and comes back to that hook, he knows that he's at his entrance window. My other responsibility is to monitor with the tick. And what I'm looking for is, one, I'm keeping an eye on my partner. Two, I'm assessing for any victims that may be in the room. And three, I'm looking for any unusual heat signatures, such as, is that door or the wall or the ceiling starting to glow, starting to get hot? Are we starting to have breach of this room? Are fire conditions changing? And our tactics may have to change. As the searcher, your very first priority is to get to that door and close it, compartmentalize that room from the rest of the house. Before you do so, it's important that you take a look down the hall to evaluate conditions. If conditions warrant, you can go straight to the door. However, in limited visibility, it may help to do a wall search pattern towards your door. If upon entering the room the door is already closed, you still need to open it and take a look outside. One, to look for victims, and number two, to evaluate conditions inside the house to see how long you have that room. Once the door is closed, you're going to commence your search. Now remember, this is a primary search, so it has to be done very quickly. If you do find a victim, alert your partner and remove your victim through the window. If you come upon a victim right away, your priority is still to get to that door to compartmentalize that room for the safety of you and your victim. To stay oriented to your search point, a good tip is to bury the pike or Halligan into the wall. That way, once the victim's removed and you resume your search, you can move very quickly up to the point where you left off, and then resume a more thorough search at that point onward. Vent under search is also a great tactic to be used from porch tops. The benefit of this is you can reach multiple windows using just one ladder, which will free up other ladders for other uses. When venting multiple windows, if possible, try and start with the downwind windows first, working your way upwards. Search complete. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you picked up a few new things about vent under search, and we'll see you next time.